Today, we're going to talk about being a multi-passionate entrepreneur. Welcome back to Badass is the New Black. I'm your host, Chrissy Chin. And if you're new to the podcast, I'm here to help those who are struggling to find their brand, their voice, and stand out in this noisy world. And I'm here to teach you the lessons from my personal experience so that you can scale your business through automation in way less time than I did, so you can work less and enjoy more. Today, I get the pleasure of speaking with Jordan Schrandt, a Royal Crown Diamond leader in Young Living. She's been a member for nearly 8 years and began building her network marketing business in the summer of 2013. 3 years and 8 months later, her team hit Royal Crown Diamond. She's been growing ever since. She's a mom of 8, a wife, a homesteader, and a homemaker. She's also the publisher of her own magazine called the Farmhouse Movement. She's the host of the largest non-corporate Young Living event called Diamond Bound, and as well as the author of many books used by Young Living worldwide, as The Welcome Book, The Men of Young Living, and Funnel Your Focus. Welcome, Jordan. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Chrissy. I'm so excited to be here. This is so fun.
This is like kind of a big deal for me because I've been to your events. I've seen you speak and crush the stage. And I actually got to go on stage after you this spring, which was really nerve-wracking for me. But I feel so honored. I feel so honored and grateful to have you here on the podcast chatting.
Oh, thank you so much. You're so sweet. I'm sure I heard the first little bit of your speech and then I had to catch a plane, but I think you're amazing and you don't give yourself enough credit. You're beautiful and perfect and you were awesome on stage.
Thanks, girl. And that's funny that you're like, you did the speech and then you're like, I got to jet, I got to run. And that's perfect leading into our topic of being a multi-passionate entrepreneur, because that is the lifestyle, right? When you're doing a ton of things, you're go, go, go. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's dig in. Let's do it.
All right, awesome. And there's so many network marketing listeners and then entrepreneurial, creative listeners here, but there's also this mix of network marketers who also have this other passion and want to pursue something else. And that's been my journey. So I know I've attracted a lot of those people. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about that and your journey and how you do it all. So that's, I don't know if you want to share, I gave, everyone knows kind of a little bit of background. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add before we kind of dive into my number one big question, which is how the heck do you do it all?
I mean, I think you pretty much covered the basis of what we do. We also run a greenhouse and a bakery at the farmers market, and we have a warehouse that we are transitioning over into a large venue and the food distribution for local communities. So there's a few other like small niche things that we do in our community that weren't as much talked about in your introduction. But I mean, gosh, how do we do it all? A lot of really good products. That's why I'm so passionate about the particular network marketing company we are with. I love it, and the products really do support my body. And I think that's a really important thing is, people ask me this question, Chrissy, like probably every week. I get messages, I get emails, and people saying, girl, like you are just doing so many things. How do you do all of these things and keep all the balls in the air? And my first response always is that you've got to take care of you, because if anything, if I go down, all the balls that I'm trying to keep in the air fall. And so that, as much as it sounds cliche, self-care is really, really important. And I've kind of learned that the hard way, because I used to just push the pedal to the metal and like let myself be at the very last of the things to take care of. Because when you're busy, it's really easy to forget yourself, because you are kind of autonomous and you're the only one that's in your own mind knowing what you're feeling. So you can bury what you're feeling and what your body's feeling to get the jobs done outside of you, right? But I learned the hard way after I had some adrenal fatigue and a lot of, I just kind of crashed and burned a little bit for a few months after hitting Royal Crown Diamond, which is the top rank of our company, and realized, man, I cannot keep up this pace. So I took several months and just kind of reevaluated how I wanted to organize my days, how I wanted to organize my life. So I have kind of an interesting perspective on how to quote unquote do it all, which I will explain that I don't actually do it all here in a second. But, you know, I realized I hired a couple of life coaches and business coaches and really just started studying how people who maximize their time and get a lot done in a small amount of time, how they do it. And so I've been a student, just like your listeners are becoming students of this art of really being extremely efficient with your day, without burning out and without, you know, losing your health and your family and the things that you really care most about.
Yeah,
And I would say, go ahead.
no, yeah, I was just gonna say absolutely. And having that guidance, I don't care what rank you are, top rank, or how successful you are in your business, like there's always the opportunity to learn more and be coached by
Yes.
someone. And just as you
Yes.
were talking about that self-care and taking care of yourself, I was thinking about, you know, my high performance coach that I, you know, hired to help me. And I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
going to be a lot of business stuff. And literally the first two sessions were about healthy habits, like eat,
Mm-hmm.
like what are my health goals and physical goals.
Right.
That was the first thing we focused on. And I was like, wait a minute, when are we going to get to the business stuff? And he's like, no. You're in high performance coaching. You have
Right.
a lot on your plate and you need to be high performing every single day. This is where you start. You start
Exactly.
eating habits that you stated you want to, you know, make and change and lasting change, and the physical, so that your body can stay high performing.
That's
So
right.
yeah, so I'm totally on board with that and validate, like I get goosebumps thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Self-care, like again, like you,
Yep.
sounds cliche, but it is the start. And I recognize that when I start to go down in my business and things, it's because I'm not taking care of myself.
Yeah, and I think looking at that from a really holistic perspective, not holistic as in like naturopathic, but holistic as in your whole being, you know, really understanding that if you are working so much that you've ruined the relationship with your spouse, then you know, you've kind of lost a part of the magic and the sparkle about what you're doing this for.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and so really looking at relationships, looking at your spiritual health, looking at your physical health, of course. I will tell you something that I actually learned from not a business coach, not a multi-million-dollar earner, not anyone who anyone knows, is my grandmother. My grandmother told me years ago, she said, I said, how do you always stay so, you know, trim? And she's like a Southern belle.
Mm-hmm.
She's a homemaker. She's never worked out of the home a day in her life. So interesting that some of the best business advice about how to be a multi-million-dollar earner, an 8-figure earner, which is what I'm going for, how do you do that? You know, and interesting that she gave me free advice as like an 18-year-old. And she said, Jordan, I wake up at the same time every day. I wash my face. I read the Bible. I put on my makeup. I put on an outfit that's suitable to wear to the grocery store or to host friends for lunch or to go to bridge club. I dress in like a very similar outfit every day. I get ready for the day and then I go through my day. I eat breakfast at the same time. I eat a mid-morning snack, which usually includes chocolate.
Love it.
She said, I eat lunch at the same time every day. I always have an afternoon snack. I put my feet up after my afternoon snack for 20 minutes. I set the alarm on the stove top and I put the 20-minute timer on. I lay for 20 minutes, put my feet up. Then I get up and I have dinner the same time every day. I always have a big salad for dinner. I walk for 30 minutes after dinner and I go to bed at the same time. And she said, if I do those things, then everything else that I do during the day is low stress. I get a lot done. I'm able to, and she's not just a homemaker. She's like she hosts bridge club. She hosts dinner parties. Her husband was a banker. They were, you know, deacons at their church. So she was always hosting church banquets and all kinds of things. And so for her niche, for her career, which was being a homemaker, she was like the best of the best. And I said, you know, how do you be excellent in anything? And she said, I do this consistent routine every single day. And she's never struggled with weight. She's never struggled with stress. She's never struggled with burnout of, you know, or discouragement or depression or anxiety or any of those other things that a lot of us do. And yet she is recognized in her church, in her community, and as being truly like such an example of how to live an efficient and effective and really balanced life. And I've been thinking so much, even over the last couple of years after I kind of burnt out, how important it is that you take care of yourself, because no matter what else you do during the day, you're going to show up well. And so getting up at the same time is something I've started doing, going to bed at the same time. I no longer am working late into the night. And I'm finding that I'm more efficient during the day because I'm not tired. I'm not, you know, grouchy. I'm not emotionally bankrupt. And that's just so key. So those are a few things of self-care. The other part is, you know, I absolutely do not drink any kind of like energy drinks. I don't eat sugar. I just feel like that those things are like literal pitfalls for entrepreneurs. And if you study high performers, they are really conscious and really aware of what they put into their bodies. And I get it. This sounds cliche. We hear it everywhere, but it's real and it makes a huge difference. So your diet and drinking a ton of water and all of that is super important. As far as the business side of it, I mean, this is something that I tell people all the time. I don't do it all. I worked really hard for several years so that I could earn enough income. Back when I didn't do it all, I did one thing. I was laser sharp focused on one thing so that I could earn enough income to start to hire out help. And so once I had enough income, and you don't have to do one thing to get enough income. You might be able to do several things and earn enough income, but all of the things you're pretty much doing on your own. At the beginning, you're doing it on your own, and you're not doing everything, and you're not necessarily chasing every passion and every pursuit. You might chase one or two or three passions or pursuits that you can do really well on your own. But then I got to a point where I had enough income that I could start hiring help. And so now I only choose my best yes, and I either say no to something, and I completely put it off the table, even if it's a good idea. I don't have to say yes to every good idea because there's a million good ideas out there. I
listen to that, my friends. Like, listen, take note of what she just said.
Yes.
Like, you may have a million good ideas, but like some you have to table. And I know if you're listening to this, you're an entrepreneurial mindset and you have all those ideas and you want to do them all.
You want to do them all.
Yeah, you
and
can do them all.
The best thing is learning to say no. And so I say no, or I say yes, or I delegate. So saying yes and delegating to me aren't exactly the same thing. I'm saying yes and then delegating a lot. And the way that you either outsource or delegate. So before I was able to design my own stuff because I just didn't have the right tools, I didn't have the right skills, I outsourced. So when I first started writing booklets, mini books and stuff for our network marketing community, which we've now sold over 2 million units of globally.
Awesome.
And before that, I just found someone that did graphic design and I outsourced. And then when that business grew, then I hired someone. So now I have a full-time graphic artist that works for me exclusively. And then I hired a couple of assistants, and then I hired an event coordinator. And as each year passed and new pursuits came available, I had to ask myself the question of, can I do this? Yes. Is it a no thing that I need to say no to? Or is it something that I could delegate out and still get it done? And the key to scalability, the key from earning, $50,000 a year to $150,000 to $750,000 to $1.5 million a year to $10 million a year, the key to scalability is being able to identify what's your yes, what's a definite no, and then what's something that you could say yes to, but then immediately outsource or delegate it so that it's not actually on your plate. And this is a really, really important skill that you're going to start to do small. And then as it grows, you start to empower. I have now people on staff who actually hire and fire for me. And so now that's the only way to scale. You know, we've got 10 full-time staff members. And we are going to hire more as the years progress, you know, because we're doing a lot of things on the ground and in the community here. But those are the three things that you've got to look at in order to be able to really, quote unquote, do it all. You know, you look at people like a president of a corporation or president of America or a superintendent of a school or whomever. And really, even though they're the face of that corporation or that entity, they don't do it all. They have a ton of people that are reporting to them. And so understanding outsourcing and delegating is huge. Understanding what's your best yes is huge. And then having enough guts to say no to good ideas, because you can just see that you're not ready to scale there yet. You can't afford it. And you certainly shouldn't be taking it on your own. Otherwise, point number one, which is self-care, goes down the drain and everything else falls.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with all of that. And the things that I say yes to are the things that are in my zone of genius that only I can do.
That's right.
So like
That's
a podcast
exactly right.
episode, only I'm the one that can, I can't delegate that and have my, support staff show up for me to do the interview,
Right,
but
that's right.
can I delegate someone to do all the scheduling? Absolutely.
Right.
And so that's like my thing right now. I'm literally like, when I feel like I'm going to lose my mind, I'm like, okay, what is the thing that's literally causing me so much stress? And right now it's my email. And so with one of my coaches, they're like, okay, in the next 2 weeks, I want you to hire someone that's literally going to read your emails and tell you what you need to do and what is priority and organize. And I'm like, all right, I'm on a mission, because I know that once that is off my plate, which I don't have to do, right? There's so many things that come in my email inbox that I don't have to do right away. If they can do that, then I can say yes to the things I need to be there for, and my life can kind of stay in harmony, but I can't do it all by myself. So I love and 100% agree with delegation being a huge part of being able to do it all, because the reality is we can't do it all. We need support. And then saying no. I never wanted to say no. And it wasn't until I worked with my mindset coach that I realized that I didn't want to say no, because I didn't want to A, let people down, and B, I really had this thing to prove that I was good enough. And so by saying yes, it was like me trying to prove that I'm good enough. And the reality was like, wait a minute, I am good enough without doing that. So if it's going to tilt, the scale and put me off of, down for the count, then I need to say no, because saying yes doesn't prove anything.
Right. Yeah. And I think something that's really interesting is most business owners stay in the business owner category and they never move into a management position. Therefore, they can never move into an investor position. They always stay being the owner operator of their business, and they can't scale. And the reason why is that they go into a business of something that they're good at, that skill. So if you've got a plumber and he's like, hey, I'm really naturally good at this. I've got a knack for it. I understand it. I know all the tools. I know all my stuff. I know all the techniques. I couldn't hire someone to be as good as me. That right there is the failure of the mindset of most entrepreneurs, of why they stay struggling, and why, what is it, 80% of businesses in America fail in the first 5 years they get started? Why do 80% fail? Because entrepreneurs start something where they have a skill and they don't believe anybody can do that skill as good as them. And it's a failure of the mindset of first of all, believing that other people are talented and have skills and can bring skills to the table. And then the other part is that it's almost kind of like you said, you've got something to prove and you've developed this skill, and it's kind of a fear of, if I step out from this, then maybe someone isn't going to do it as good as me. And so you hold on, you clench it tightly and say, I can't let this go. And really the way to do that is you've got to have a bit of a time and a season, which I talked about this I hosted, like you said, an annual event for our network marketing company globally. And I talked about this on the mindset session in Chicago a couple of years ago. And that is, every entrepreneur, in order to scale to being truly a CEO of a company, instead of just an entrepreneur that's working in the field, has to take time to step back and work on their business and not just in their business. You may have been there that night, Chrissy, in Chicago.
Yeah,
it was the opening session. And that is such an important component, because if you don't take time to step back and work on your business, then how can you ever develop systems and skills to be able to communicate, to train new people?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if you're a plumber, which I know your audience aren't probably plumbers, but
probably
everybody
not
knows
a single plumber, but maybe someone's husband is a plumber.
Yeah. But everybody knows plumbers, and you get the general concept. And so if you're a plumber and you say, listen, I work 8 to 5 every day, I'm at people's houses, or you're a photographer. You know what? I work every weekend at weddings. I do like evening sessions for families. I do whatever, senior sessions on Sunday afternoons. And then I have a family to take care of, and then I have bills to pay, and I have mouths to feed, and I have other obligations, and I want to go work out at yoga and all these things. And it just seems like you're already working so much in your business that it kind of is overwhelming to think about adding additional time to your work day to step back and work on your business. But it's a critical component to being able to scale and do it all, like you say. And it's not a real thing to do it all, but you know what I mean?
Right.
To be able to do more of what you're passionate about, which is the topic today, is how do you diversify and pursue other interests. But truly, if that entrepreneur, if that plumber, if that photographer will, have a lot of self-discipline for a season, say no to some fun things, maybe say no to the movie night that you usually do, or a Netflix rerun that you're going to watch, or say no to the girls' night out, and actually get really focused, maybe get up an hour early for a week straight. And all you're doing is saying, how could I train someone else? How could I find someone that has already a base set of skills like me? How do I find another plumber that's good? How do I find another photographer that's good? And then how do I create a system to train them and bring them on board for me? So now I've got someone else that's actually making money for my company and making money on their own as well. And now I can double, we can both be shooting at the same time. Mm-hmm. We can both be plumbing houses at the same time. And I've got some, a percentage of their profit that goes into our company. And so you're scaling and growing the company. Well, guess what? You're never going to get to that point if you don't take time to step back, have self-discipline, and carve out time to work on your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I know, like you mentioned before, like as the entrepreneur, thinking about, I can't find someone who's going to do it, as good as I can. I know there's also people out there that are thinking like, gosh, I don't want to find someone that does it better than me, because then that means, I'm not as valuable. But that's actually what I strive for, is like, who can I hire that can probably do what I can pass off better than
me. Yep.
Yeah. And that's what I look for. And there's no way that I could have this podcast, Badass is the New Black, and my personal brand, coaching business and things like that, and my other brand and network marketing, like all the things. There's no way that I could do it all without that support, without looking for people that can fill in the gaps where I fall short, or pass off things and coach them and teach them, and systems and process to train and hire and all of the things. I literally got a little jealous when you said, like, you have someone that hires and fires for you. I'm like, ooh, I need that.
And I think too, something that's really good, that what you just said, that I want to close with on this one particular question, is that, if you're afraid of hiring someone that has more skill than you will not scale your business. You should be passionately seeking people who are better than you, because how else are you going to elevate your business? If you're the best person in the room, then your business is the average of the 5 people that are, surrounding themselves running that business. Like, I would love to increase my average. I would love to hire people who are amazing at what they do, and they're not just expecting me to hold their hand and teach them all the skills. And that's kind of the whole point, is hire people who are really, really good at either something that you can't do, or something that you also do, an example of like a hairdresser or photographer that are better than you, and increase your average and learn from them as well, because people are willing to come on board with a company or with like a sole proprietorship that's growing. They're willing to come on board simply for the fact that they don't have to have the headache of marketing. They don't have to create the t-shirts and the logos and deal with all the stress of paying a W-2 employee and paying in all the social security and all the other things. People who have excellent skills sometimes just want the covering of a boss. And so if you want to be the entrepreneur, trust me, there's skilled people out there who just want to work for someone. So look for those people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay. And that's a good close to this little topic. I want to get into the Farmhouse movement and the magazine, and kind of just, because the topic or theme of this is multi-passionate entrepreneurs. So let's talk a little bit about that and what that was like for you to start it. How did you decide when you were going to start it? And I just want to know more. Let's take a tiny little break from this badass podcast to talk about Kajabi, or as my husband calls it, Punjabi. Babe, it starts with a K. Kajabi. This is the platform that literally makes all the magic happen. It's plug and play, no coding necessary. And guess what, you guys? The best thing about it is that you get your very own mobile app with it. I looked into building an app and it was going to be over $100,000. You get your own right there. The platform is so affordable too. So instead of paying for individual platforms like your CRM system, which is going to host your email, your landing pages, which is going to capture your email, your website, which is going to be where all the magic happens, a community space, it's literally all in one. So it doesn't matter if you want to host courses, educational classes, have libraries in there for your team. This is absolutely the way to go. And I have a month free for you to check it out. So hop over to my website, thechrissychin.com/Kajabi, Kajabi, and you can check out a month for free. I cannot wait to see what you create. Please do me a favor, send me a DM, send me an email once you've created something so I can see it and check it out. Can't wait for you to get started and scale your business like a badass boss. All right, let's get back to the podcast.
Wow, what a loaded question.
I know.
I'm going to summarize.
I set you up for that one.
I'm going to summarize this as best as I can and keep it brief. There's, I think such an important thing is knowing yourself. You've got to really know, what are my passions? What do I feel like is my God-given calling in this life? And not to over dramatize this process, but I think it's important that people kind of just take a small season and they go, what is my brand? What do I back to this event, because I always bring my very best content to my annual event. And in 2017, I talked about identity at the opening session of our large event there. And it was really digging into your heritage and your skill set and your life experiences and your education, and pulling all of this, who am I, together to kind of define and describe yourself and your brand. And instead of trying to shape your brand to look like or be like your favorite influencer or favorite business owner or favorite entrepreneur, instead build your brand based upon who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
And so after my kind of burnout a little bit after hitting the top rank of our company, I took a season and I just slowly stepped back from the hustle and bustle. I hired my first life coach. I talked about insecurities about growing up on a farm, being involved in the FFA. I was really involved in Future Farmers of America, the FFA program. I was a state officer in Missouri. I went to college. I have a degree in a Bachelor of Science in agriculture communications. Actually, I have been inside of Monsanto. I've toured all of the agribusiness industry in Missouri and many other states. I worked with Missouri Farm Bureau. I have met the United States Director of Agriculture. I mean, I was really entrenched in the farm world. And the thing is that like the farm girls growing up in middle school and high school, it was a struggle. Like, you know how high school is, it's like a cesspool of cliques.
Yeah.
And so I was also an athlete, but I always kind of struggled with like the identity of being a farm girl, which in a small town USA is kind of like the hicks and the rednecks, and like, kind of overcoming that stereotype that I felt a little insecurity about when I was younger. And I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
know how to deal with that and how to reconcile who I was, and trying to always be a jock and fit in with the right clubs and groups and all these things. And that's just part of like the cultural, norm and phenomenon of growing up in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that I kind of buried that a little bit. I married a man who was not a farm boy. He grew up in the suburbs, in Michigan, and he knew nothing about any of that. And I kind of buried it even when I got into my network marketing company. I raised chickens on the side, and we had a huge garden, and I was really like a farm girl at heart. We always shopped at the farmers market every weekend, and I always had herbs growing in my windowsill of every house I've lived in, and just things like that. But I still didn't know how to incorporate that into my brand, because I always had felt like it was a little non-cool.
Yeah.
And so my grandma taught me about shiplap when I was a kid, told me about how her dad hung shiplap on the side of their home after it burnt down. And, I've drank out of mason jars since I was a little kid. I've always had quilts on all of our beds and all of those things. And so I sat down with this identity coach, and I basically just said, listen, like, I just don't really know who I am. I went to college. I got married. I lived in New York for 1 year, but then I got married immediately after. I immediately had 5 children on my wedding day. My husband was a widower. And so I had a 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9-year-old immediately. And I basically threw off every identity except for full-time mom. I mean, I was in survival mode. Then I started Young Living, and I just threw off most every identity other than full-time mom and full-time, I'm going to the top of this company.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that happened, I got to the top, and I kind of stepped back, and I was like, I have no idea who I am or what I want out of my life, other than now I, have this great income and I have this great family, but what else is my calling? And so that's a really, really important step, is really understanding what is your passion, what do you feel like you are called to do, how can you serve people, where do you feel like is something that it lights your fire.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized was that I could embrace who I am, my roots, my heritage, my identity, what I'm truly passionate about, and actually make it cool.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of shying away from that style, that vibe, that genre, because I had this like preconceived notion that there was a stigma with it. Instead, just make it cool, make it a brand that is the best version of me. And so the
Mm-hmm.
Farmhouse Movement magazine was birthed later that year. Actually, we launched it a couple of days before I turned 30, in early October 2017, which was about 5 or 6 months after I hit that top rank. And I birthed that out of a desire to educate people on how to live a farmhouse life, a very simple, back to our roots type of lifestyle, and just people who are interested in raising chickens and gardens and how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to embrace what I love, who I am, and what I feel like my calling is, and just run with it. Because once you're grounded in that vision and that mission of really who you are and what you're here for, then you can pursue those other passions with reckless abandon, because it's congruent with your whole self and with your person and your heart and your belief system and your core values. And so that was kind of the heart behind it. As far as logistically, I believe anyone can do anything. You literally get on the phone and start making calls and asking questions. And I actually said, I Googled search something like, who publishes Southern Living magazine? And I called the publishing company, the like 1-800 number. And I said, hey, who would I need to call if I wanted to start getting a magazine published and printed? And so I went through days or weeks of just one person giving me another number, and I was asking questions and just digging. And I finally landed upon a company called Quad Graphics. They're based out of somewhere in, where is it now? Wisconsin. And they print basically every major magazine that you've heard of. They print National Geographic and Oprah magazine and all these big magazines. And so I went up there, I flew to their corporate office. I sat down, I said, this is what I want to do. How do I do this? I have no idea where to start, but I want to do this. And so we just walked through that process. They helped me find a company to help with distribution and managing the subscriber database and all these things. And we outsourced a ton of things, and just started. We hired the right people to start designing. We hired photographers. I started writing. We found contributors. I mean, it was just a process, but ultimately I think anybody can do anything, Chrissy. I think it's just a matter of that drive. If you've got the drive there, then it's the old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. So when you've got the drive and you've got the heart and you got the desire and you know who you are and you know what that mission and that purpose is, then nothing's going to get in your way. The reason that people sometimes don't pursue that is they have analysis paralysis, and they're over analyzing, and they're thinking, and they're second guessing themselves and questioning, is this really what I should do? And, they have this fear of, what if I fail, and all these things. And again, if you get back to self-care and knowing your identity and knowing your call and your purpose and spending time reflecting and studying on that, all the other logistic stuff will work itself out, because there's an answer to questions. That's just nuts and bolts. The nuts and bolts is the easy part of business. The heart and the passion and the enthusiasm and the drive is the hard part of business.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And when you said, you just tried to make, farming cool, I also think there's this aspect of just embracing your identity, whether it's cool to you or not. The reality is that it's going to be really cool to your tribe of people that also think it's cool. So the second you own who you are, where you come from, where you're going, and can lay that out there and say, look, this is who I am, this is where I'm going. If you want join and follow, you will attract all the people that think it's really super cool.
Absolutely. Right? Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah. And then it doesn't have to be a matter of like, how do I make this super cool? Of course, that's like a great question to ask. Like, okay, how do I make this, appeal to a large group of people? But I really just think, and I felt that in this brand of really, this is the first time I've really owned everything about me, and I'm attracting people, getting emails like, I want you to be my coach because like you're goofy and I just vibe with you and I just know that I want to learn from you. And so I know that we have this real connection, whereas just being very surface level and just trying to be what I think everyone else think is cool really hindered my ability to connect with people.
That's such a great point, Chrissy. And I think it's so important. There's a grace and ease that comes with being okay with who you are. You just show up with a different grace and ease, and people are attracted to someone who just carries themselves with that grace and ease. It's not forced. It's not contrived. It's not stressful. And people are spirit. Our spirits can sense the nervous tension of someone else, and they can also sense the just ease of the way the information flows from them. And if you're just get to a place that you're okay with you, and I know, wow, this gets so much deeper than just how to do it all. This is the magic sauce, though, Chrissy. This is it's really the defining ingredient in this whole recipe of success, and that is yourself. And I teach the people that I coach, coach people in our particular company on business, and I always say, if there's one thing that you can work on every single day in your business, it's you. If you work on you every day, every other hat, every other role is going to elevate. And people often say, what do I do? How do I work on myself? I find some really awesome books and some great things that speak life and truth over myself. And, I'm a Christian, so that goes into everything that I do. And if that's not your jam, that's fine. But for me, that's helped me ground and find balance and identity and truth in that. And so it's a grounding place, and then I build up from the foundation instead of trying to build up high and you don't have any foundation, you just can't build without a foundation. Everyone knows that. And so starting with that, building on your foundation, knowing your identity, taking care of yourself once you know your identity, showing up with the best version of you, being willing to only say yes to what you're truly gifted in, say no to everything else, outsource and delegate, and then all the other nuts and bolts and logistics will fall in line.
I love that. I love that. And you totally just wrapped up the entire episode, which is amazing. So I think we could literally talk for hours and hours, but we won't.
Yes.
I want to do a quick rapid fire questions with you. And then I want to let people know how they can connect with you. So, because you literally wrapped up the whole episode perfectly, I'm not even going to do it. Sound good?
That's great. That's perfect.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to do a fun little rapid fire questions. I'm just going to say two things and you have to pick which one.
All right. Here we go.
Okay, you ready?
Okay.
All right.
I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. All right. I know. I didn't warn you about this. So
no, I'm totally joking. It's all good. It's all good.
All right. Eat in or eat out?
Eat out.
Introvert or extrovert?
Introvert. Those two are conflicting answers.
They are, but that's okay. Snow or sun?
Sun.
Phone call or text?
Phone call.
Big party or small gathering?
Big party.
Okay. Money or free time?
Free time.
Blinds or curtains?
What?
It's random. It gets random up in here. Okay, curtains. She's a curtains girl in her farmhouse. All right. When sleeping, fan or no fan?
No fan.
Driving, passenger or driver? Which
passenger.
You prefer to be passenger. Okay. And then flying, window, aisle, or middle seat?
Window, girl.
All right. And then this isn't an either or. You get just to pick one thing. What is your favorite charity right now that you are spending some time in?
Well, it's ours. We are doing a huge food distribution to the community for people who've been affected by the coronavirus and they don't have jobs. So we're giving out boxes of food every weekend for the next 8 weeks.
I love that. I love that. So awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And then share with our audience where they can find you, the Farmhouse Movement magazine, and connect with you.
Yeah. So of course I'm on Instagram at Jordan Schrandt. I have a Facebook page under the same name. I have a website, jordanschrandt.com. And then the Farmhouse Movement is also on Instagram and Facebook. And it's at the Farmhouse Movement. And we have a website, farmhousemovement.com.
Love it. And you guys, I'm in Atlanta and the Farmhouse Movement is in our Publix here. So go look at your local store and see if it's available. If not, they can order it online, right?
Yep. You can order it online and we'll ship it right here from our warehouse in the Ozarks.
Awesome. I love it. It's gorgeous. The information in there is money. You want to get your hands on it. All right.
Thanks,
thank you, Jordan, so much for spending some time with me today. This was awesome. I appreciate all your advice and words of wisdom. Thanks, girl.
Yes. Thanks, Chrissy. Have a great day, girl. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.